Dude. Dude.
Possible?
Yes. It's there now. I can see it.
Steve, also kindly check on the YouTube again because members are saying they can't hear. And allow me to be a host so I can share my screen.
Tony, everything is fine?
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Antonio Ching, and I'll be taking you guys through a session on nature and conservation photography. But first foremost, let me ask Steve Deri to allow me to be a host so I can be able to share my screen because I have a presentation. As Steve does that is what we'll actually work on is make this more interactive session rather than just me sharing images and what I do. So I just want to confirm if everyone can see my screen. And Delito, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
So I'm going to stop I'm just going to stop my audio because of internet, just a minute, and then so I can be able to have a better view. Okay, there we go. So I'll be taking you today through a session on nature and conservation photography. I've been doing this for the last 4 years, and I've learned a lot in this particular process, not only things that I knew, but also things that I never knew, got a better understanding of conservation from a more broader perspective. But the most important tool I was using was a camera. And it opened doors in the way that I can't really explain because I was able now to use images to not only inspire other people into conservation, but to make other people take note of what actually is actually going. And that's the role of conservation photography. So Stephen already introduced me. I'm a wildlife education conservationist, photographer based in Kenya, and I mainly focus on creating content that will inspire conservation action across all ages. And this content can be both either film or photography or any other form of content. You can actually find it on my platform called Tony Wild, which has been operational for the last 4 years. So what I'll do is I'll try and make this interactive for those who are watching either on Facebook, YouTube, Facebook and YouTube mainly. What you can do is I'll run through a couple of images. And once I run through a couple of images, I want you guys to either comment 1 or 2 words about either the series of the images or the images themselves. So this is the first one, the second one, third, fourth, and and the 5th. So I'm just gonna give you guys like 3 seconds or 4 or 2 minutes to just send in your comments on the images you've just seen. I'll run them through again. So, Steve, if possible, just let me know of any comments made by the chat section. Understood?
We don't have any comments yet. Please go carry on. We don't have any comments yet regarding your just go.
So basically, this is a series of images talking about mangroves. In most cases, when you talk about wildlife photography, people mainly focus on either big cats, elephants, mainly. But then our environment as a whole needs to be documented, in the sense that it has to be documented to actually tell those particular stories. As for this particular series, it's a mangrove project that is based in Gazi, Kilifi, and what they're actually doing is they're restoring mangroves. Mangrove is a type of tree that is actually found along the coastal line that actually protects most of the shoreline of most countries across the world. But due to degradation or due to human influence, the number has actually reduced. So this community works together to secure this particular riparian shoreline, just to ensure that they have a number of fish stocks. They have actually be able to do carbon trading. So the projects mainly focus on mangroves and carbon trading. And what you see on your screen is more of a boardwalk, which is managed by the women in that particular community, and it's more of a touristic site. So it's just an aerial view of how the boardwalk looks. And such images are beautiful images. And it's one key to make somebody get attracted to a particular topic, or to be able to know why exactly they need to care. And then these are details. These are roots of the mangroves. For those who've gone to the coast, can talk about the different tidal of how water moves back and forth from the shoreline. So when the tidal is going back or coming in, you realize that the mangrove's root system is actually left up. So for somebody who doesn't understand what mangroves is, the images play a critical role for them to be able to actually interrelate on how important these particular species are. So images really play a very key role in building that particular space. And for me personally, over the time, is that conservation without people is not really conservation, because people are the main important component in conservation. And when I talk about people here, I talk about people and their livelihoods, people and whatever they do, either in terms of livestock keeping, farming, and any other activity they do in most protected areas. So, for example, this particular area was once bare, but then after efforts of the community members, they put together, they actually build it up to restore the area. And this is how now it looks like. And this is Shebani, one of the community rangers, who actually testified that the project has really helped him as a person and the community as a whole, because he's seen how this particular forest actually grown from it being bare. And apart from just doing telling stories of the people working in conservation, there are those scientists that work within a particular space. So the game ranger here is part of the team that is measuring carbon credits, and the carbon credits are being used to be sold on the carbon market, and then they get money to implement projects such as water projects, conservation projects, school education programs, health programs within the particular area. And this is one of the first mangrove, let me talk about blue project that was the first one across the whole world. So it's something that needs to be documented and be told over a given period of time. And you can use images come in as a strong point where it helps link people with conservation. If I have never been to Kilifi, I've never been to Gazi, but I can see an image of this. I'll be asking myself so many questions. Where is this? What's really happening? All of us know rangers put on green, so that will be a ranger. So the images in one particular composition, you should be able to tell that one story, and that's how nature photography works for. And then, apart from just talking about what people do, is talk about what is being done in the future. So these are small seedlings for mangroves, just along the coastal shoreline, and they take time to actually grow. And when I was doing on this particular assignment, one of the project officer was so excited to see them grow, because she's not been to the nursery for a while. So when she went to that particular nursery, she was like, wow, they have really survived. And she was really impressed that finally the mangrove seedlings have actually germinated well. And this is captured on motion. And those are feelings that, because we all relate with feelings. If somebody is sad, we'll feel sad and try to figure out how do we help. If somebody's happy, we'll be like, let's celebrate with them in joy. In short, is that images are supposed to have an emotional feel, especially the ones for conservation photography. And the emotional feel can either take two sides. One that is negative, and another that is positive. And in a world where there's so much negativity, sometimes we need more of create images that have some hope in it, so that we don't feel like the world is burning. Yes, it's burning, but at least have some hope to actually to inspire other people to continue pushing for what they're doing. So in summary of what I'm talking about is that conservation photography is a process, and it uses the parameters of photojournalism to advocate for conservation outcomes. And what it does, it combines nature photography and with an approach of documentary photography for those who are purely photographers, with an agent to protect nature and improving the biosphere and natural environment. And it does not just stop at that particular aspect. It moves forward and talk more about environmental conservation, wildlife conservation, habitat conservation. Habitat in the sense that the area of where these animals are found, where these people live, and the culture conservation by expanding public awareness of issues and stimulating remedial action. So in just a nutshell, that is what conservation photography is. And if you're doing photography, there are very many aspects you can pull out from here. You can focus on documentary photography for conservation. You can focus on wildlife photography for nature photography, because it plays a key role. But then when you combine this with the aspects of journalism and advocacy for conservation, it becomes now conservation photography. So it moves you from just taking pictures, but using them for a purpose or for a cause. So I'm going to just share another set of images, and then just take you through the one image to it, and then you can actually be able to break them down and talk about different conservation issues. So if you look at the previous assignment, it's mainly trees, and then the next one I'll talk about wild animals, because the definition of wildlife is both plants, and animals. In most cases, we look at wildlife as purely animals that we see move around, but plants that actually next nearby you are actually wildlife, depending on where you exactly are coming from. Apart from exotic plants or or domesticated plants or the same. So this is one of the series that I've always treasured mostly because I just love interacting with chimps, and over the last 3 years, I've been continuously documenting chimps, mainly in Uganda, and there is that personal feel of how you photograph a given species. You need to bond with them. You need to understand that particular species. So if you're doing conservation photography, you need to understand your topic. You need to be able to get interested. You need to have a driving force on why exactly are you doing this. And for me, when I was doing this particular assignment, I had two things in mind. One, from a photographer point of view, was to build a portfolio because I didn't have any portfolio to show about photography and conservation as a work. So it was one particular platform for me to do that. Two, it allowed me to be able now to interact with wildlife on a more personal level, from a scientist and then into being behind the scenes to see what exactly happens in these conservation spaces. For those who are conservationists who are listening to me, we know that sometimes we get really drowned into our specific roles to the extent we forget on looking at other people's roles and what exactly they're doing. But when you come in with a different view or a different way of looking at things through the mirror, through the lens of a mirror, lens of a camera, you realize there's a lot you can actually see, and that builds that particular momentum. So when you're building a conservation photography story, is that you need to have specific shots. One of the major shots, you need to have a hero shot. A hero shot is a shot that will activate your audience to be able to get attracted to that particular issue. And this hero shot can either be a portrait of the character, and the character for me here was the chimps. So a nice portrait of the character really brings in those moods and emotions of that particular species. And then after bringing in more of the hero shot, you bring in the character. You need to talk about the character. You talk about the details. So the details of whatever you're shooting. So if you're doing a conservation assignment, you need to get the details. You need to get the character. The character can be a person, can be an animal, can be the habitat you're photographing, can be an issue you're photographing. So you need to just figure out who is my character. The hero shot is that shot that actually summarizes every single issue in just one picture. So we have two images on this on my left and on my right. And if you look at these particular images, one image is more of a detailed shot. And it's of a chimp scratching its hand. And if you see that particular image on its own, you as a human being will feel that particular scratch. Is that it actually forms part and parcel of your life. You relate with relate with chimps because we are like almost 96% related to chimpanzees in terms of our DNA. So even the way they behave, just like how it's actually scratching. We don't need more explanation on the image. The image on my right will need a bit of explanation because it provokes different emotions depending on the attitudes and perceptions of people towards wildlife or towards wildlife issues or towards the issues being documented. And I'm not afraid to say, if you look at this picture, if you don't understand where the image is coming from and do not read the captions, you might think that these are caged chimpanzees, but that is not true. So Ngamba Island hosts 52 orphan chimpanzees, and I just give context. The 52 orphan chimpanzees are mainly rescued from either bushmeat trade, or illegal wildlife trafficking, or they're actually pets in some zoos across the world. But then for chimpanzees, you can't return them And that's why you need to understand the behavior of a particular species. You need to understand what you're photographing to be able to give it more context on what you're shooting. Is the chimps cannot go back to the wild because just like us, we live in families. Somebody else who you do not know cannot come and stay in your house without getting to get more details. It will take you time for both of you to adjust. But chimps don't have that time for us for them to wait to adopt somebody else into the family. They'll kill them immediately because there's a fight for resources, a fight for space, and everything else. So these chimps have nowhere to go. So Gamba Island provides them a secure area where they can actually be able to survive, and also be a platform to educate every other person that illegal wildlife trade, bushmeat, and habitat destruction should not continue at the rate it's continuing. So you need to give more context when you're giving images. And one of the things I do when I go to the field is that I actually have more of like a notebook. So every single image I take has a caption. I have that conversation with people on a day-to-day basis and keep on knowing what they do, how they got into the field. It just helps you build that momentum of telling the right story. And you have to be very, very ethical in telling conservation stories because different images push different emotions. One other thing is that never forget that people work here are very, very key. And I'll just mention that is one of the caregivers called Boris, who's at this particular moment was feeding the chimps who are out from the island. There's an island where they go feed and then come back in the evening just to rest. And in the morning they head forward. And they keep doing this and one another. So this is Nyenje. Nyenje is also one of the caregivers. And over a given period of time, they'll be able to feed these particular chimps. So I'm just giving you context on, you look at the image, but then you have to add more information. So when you're doing conservation photography stories, those particular images, the hero shot, the character, the details, they have to be accompanied by captions. And the captions have to be very, very detailed. Who, why, where, what they're doing, and give it in terms of context. Because if you just put an image without any more captioning or any information, with the current issues of image being fraudulently being used in the wrong way, they bring a lot of issues around it. So just be ethical as much as you can to make sure that images fall in context. Again, emotions are very, very important when you're documenting conservative photography stories. And Nyenje has been working for Chimpanzee Trust for the longest time. And he's created that bond with chimps to the extent that if any other chimp has a problem, he'll be able to be called upon to actually help. And that really, really, really makes a difference. These are just like human beings, animals like us, and sometimes they do health checkups. So when you're doing photography, you need to not only shoot the beautiful part, but go into the detail of the scientists and check and pick information of what they're actually using. And you can be able to tell a story depending on what you want to tell your audience. So again, when you're doing nature and conservation photography assignments or whatever you're doing, is you need to think about your audience really, 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 really well. On who exactly are you communicating to. Just to move forward is people. For me, people are very, very critical when it comes to conservation, and that's my main focus. Because if I'm going to document more people interacting with wildlife, either in a good way or in a bad way, it enables other people to be able to relate with. Because not everybody understands what wildlife conservation is, or management is, or environmental issues is. But using photography as a means or as a tool to be able to enhance environmental education and awareness on environmental issues is really, really key and builds up that particular process. And don't forget to record the impacts, the positive aspects, because organizations such as Chimpanzee Trust keep on moving and keeps on moving and moving and moving. working with young people to educate them about the importance of chimpanzees. And these images do not only help them in creating awareness, but help them in fundraising, social media management. It helps them with their website content. It helps them in doing reports. So think beyond just creating images for yourself. So there's that tide of how you create images. I don't know if there's any questions, Steve, but I'll just take a break and a breather and just mention that the best conservation photographers are usually involved in research studies and work side to side with scientists. And many of the best wildlife photographer jobs are not for publication, but with research teams. Yeah. So if you're working with research individuals, you don't need to be on that particular topic. You just need to understand what they're doing, and that requires you to do more research, and then be able to use your skill as a photographer to be able to tell that particular story in the same line as much as those particular researchers or organizations are doing. Yeah.
Tony, just a few comments so far. We have a number of people following. Maybe I can just get their comments. We have Fifi Pats who's saying she's following. We have Pats saying good comments about the mangroves issue. Vicky Wangoi talking about the perspective as a content creator in documentary work. And Muhoro saying great work, Tony. Then we have many people saying that they are learning a lot from you, Tony. So I think it's a good encouragement. And we have a question where somebody is saying, let's say you're working alone, how much research do you put into a project before you go for a shoot? Let me repeat. Let's say you're working alone, how much research? Carry on. Thank you.
That's a very nice question, and sometimes people don't see that, but people see the images, but don't see the kind of work that is put before the image is created. So I'll just share with you my process of how I do the research. I have like a Google, more like a Google Excel sheet. If I have an idea in my head, I write it down. I can even write it down like today, but I will always be researching for it for even a year before even putting in together aspects of reaching out to the researcher or to the organization and tell them, I have been learning this about whatever you're doing, and I want now to. So it depends with whatever topic, because if you're shooting things like grass has to grow. You have to know the rate at which it grows. What are the external factors that are there? So there's a lot of research that you need to do. I'll just be very honest, and I'll put it in one sentence, that in every image that is created, the process of conserving photography is not in the creation of the image. It's actually in the work that you put before creating that particular image, and then after creating that particular image. So before is you understand your subjects, understand whatever is happening, do a lot of research on whatever is happening first, and then when you go shoot, you have to develop like a shooting list. And when you're researching, look at other photographers' work on that particular topic, and then be able to see what have they written differently, how have they done it, and what are you writing? Are you gonna change in that particular perspective? And then when you have that pulling together, you're going to ask yourself the questions: who is my audience? Because if your audience is, or who's your audience, and what is the purpose of this particular assignment? If your audience is, for example, if your audience is for your family members, you'll shoot differently. If your audience is for the scientific community, you'll shoot differently. If your audience is for a global space, you shoot differently. So this depends on whatever assignment you're doing, and also the action actually doing. So that not say there are those assignments that you'll just get unplanned. And even if it's unplanned, for me, I think of my assignments, even unplanned, as full assignments. I have to do research on them. I have to create a shooting list. Like I have to know, I need an image of this person doing this at this particular time. I need this, and this. So I think before I actually go to shoot, by the time I get to that camera and hold it and look at the viewfinder, I already have a picture in my mind on whatever I expect. And it makes work much more easier to be able to tell that particular story. I hope that answers your question, but I'm pretty sure as we continue, you're able now to understand why exactly it takes time for particular projects to be able to bring them forth. Yeah. So again, go into details of another series of images. And just run through them so you can have a look at them. Yeah. I know when you talk about wildlife, when you talk about nature, everybody will run to the Masai Mara. I have to be honest. I think I've only done 2 assignments in the Masai Mara, but all my assignments are actually out of protected areas, or even somewhere else. And for me, this particular story is close to the heart because it's just close to my home place. And as I'm telling everybody, you can think locally, and that's the aspect. You can think local, you can do local stories in your own area. And I'll show you how exactly what you can actually do to start off with. So you don't need to go to Masai Mara to shoot nature and wildlife photography. You don't need to go to Tsavo. You can start with the small little creatures, the insects that are nearby in your garden. Tell that story of one particular bug that wakes up in the morning in your garden. You see it in a single day, or that particular bird species. So just giving you the local context. So one of the things is growing up in the island, Rusinga Island, is that I noticed that there's a shift on the change of solar, or the change of lights being used to fish omena, or sardine fish, the scientific, the common name. But then I never knew how extensive it affected their income and also the environmental impact it's causing, because when you look at kerosene use, they have to go for long distance to get that particular kerosene. Those days there were no borders. They would take bicycles, or they actually walk, or they use the cart pulled by a donkey to get that kerosene. But these days they use solar power. They will just switch on that particular solar power and can stay over the night. This is not a story for wildlife, right? It plays a key role on environmental and nature issues that are actually ongoing. And having local people, and for me, people at home doing that particular action builds that particular momentum. And I'll just show you 2 kinds of lights. So this is the solar light, and this is the old one that was being used. The gentleman with the picture is called Kefa, and we took almost like 30 to 1 hour to light this particular lamp. So imagine these fishermen, before they got the solar lamps that just switch on a button and it's on, they had to go through like 6 of them and make sure they were lighting well. And in the process of actually lighting just this one, it was almost blowing on us. So you can imagine the health risk and that it puts on the fishermen at that particular point. So you look at the comparison of 2 different lights. This is actually one of the lights in the lake, the kerosene lamp, and this is the solar lamp. Different times of shooting, so there is no comparison in terms of the lighting capability here. Just in terms of how they look like when they're in water, and this is how it looks like at night. This was almost at around around 11 in the night, and it is so cold, and you can imagine the waves are big, and you have to tell this story and make sure that people understand that fishermen work is not as easy as you can think. It is, as much as people enjoy the small fish, it's not easy. I personally come from the island, but I've never gone fishing. But when I was doing this particular assignment, I had to go fishing for this particular assignment, and I learned a lot in that particular process. So why am I telling this is because they're playing with climate change and issues around climate change. Everybody has a role to play, but we can't focus mainly on one particular issue. We need to tell those particular stories. And for you to be able to draw that effort of being able to tell a conservation story, specifically a photo story, is that you should be able to put 12 to 15 images that can tell a whole story without really anybody looking through the article. So if you have time, feel free, go to my Instagram handle or Facebook, you'll get the link, and just go through the article and be able now to read and understand how people are actually doing aspects of climate change mitigation in their own community, and look at what's happening in your own community. How can you document what's happening in the community? Either people are planting trees, and you can start if you're talking about stories of planting trees, you can use what is referred to as time lapses. So you pick a picture of where the area didn't have any trees were planted, take a picture, wait for another given period of time, which trees take longer to grow, so 5 years or so, take another picture, put them together, and then compare them. Now that has an impact or communicates one given aspect to another. So feel free and look at the images. So yes, so what do you need to get started? I think I'll just give like 6 pointers here, but there's a lot of things that you need to get started. One is a camera, either a phone, and the phone camera is becoming much more used, and they're going to change a lot of things when it comes to photography issues. Your photography skills. Everybody can be able to point a phone, but then how is your photography skills? Are you able to build up those skills? So you need to think about that. So if you're starting off, you need to invest in a camera, invest in your skills. Rather than that, have the passion on that particular topic you're shooting. So it might not necessarily be conservation issues, but humanitarian and any other aspects. So to just build up on that particular issue you're building, and have a positive attitude. You will break down at a particular point. You will feel low. You will feel like you don't have the chi to actually do whatever you're doing. Networking skills, very, very important. Because if you don't network, you won't be able to know a scientist. You won't know who's working on what, or what's happening there. I think I need to also add, you need to also read widely. Don't just create images, but take time and read scientific papers if you're in that particular interest. But I know photographers who are just photographers and not scientists usually have a difficult way to shift from photography to science and photography. It's step by step, and that is why you need to work with either a mentor who understands the issue, or a scientist, or somebody in the organization who understands the particular issue. And the last but not the least is that you need to have an impact-oriented approach to be able to tell that particular story. So I'll just share a couple of images that I've been doing the last few assignments. They have no merit, but for me, this is just to show that there's different ways you can document different aspects. And for me, I'm looking at it from a people point of view. People in conservation, and then scientists in conservation, and then bring it in, put together the landscape. Landscapes play a key role. And if you can remember that when I was started, I mentioned that there are those important key shots you need to have to develop a conservation photography story. Is one, a hero shot that covers everything that you want to tell in one frame. There's the character, there's the issue that you're covering itself, there's the detail shots, get into details, and give us a call to action. What is the call to action you are showing in one of the images, and how can people really participate in helping do conservation work? So this is just a series of images I've been taking for the last my previous assignments. I'll just share them with you. To just give context, this is Richeti Conservancy way up in the north, and they work on rescuing elephants that are found in water areas that or either in conflict or in issues or any other issues. But I want to talk about this particular issue. But this particular focus for me was documenting the people who work with wildlife, the rangers themselves, looking at their lives beyond just working with animals. And this one particular image was taken in Sierra Conservancy is where Abdi was the only place where there was internet. And Abdi had to make a phone call to the mom. So I'd stayed with them for like four days, moving around the conservancy and camping over the night and learning stories from them. It was so amazing. But then I couldn't get internet. But then Abdi told me there's just one place you can actually get the internet. So we drove to that particular point, and I saw them lining up, waiting to just get ready to actually be able to make that one particular phone call. And these are things that you never get to see or never get to hear if you do not get somebody else as a photographer or a filmmaker to get you that information, or don't work with those particular rangers, or you're not, even public members needs to get to know how it feels working for wildlife issues. So it varies from one place to another. This is Chege. Chege works for Bongo Surveillance Project. This is Masai Mao, and Masai Mao is the area where you have bongos and stuff. And for me, people really play a key role, because when I see somebody's face, when I see somebody's emotion, when I see it brings that attraction, because there's so many images of destructive environment and so many images of trees being cut. But then how do we bring a human feel on this particular aspect? We just had done a trek for almost like about 5 hours, and it's cold. It's really, really cold. Sorry, this is not Masai Mara. This is a Buru forest. It is extremely cold, like very, very cold, especially in the morning hours. And we had to walk to look for camera traps to get pictures of Bongo. And lucky enough, we got some cameras that captured Bongo images, some had not. So just building up on the situation at hand. So I know I've talked about many things, cutting across anything, but one last thing is that everyone has a role to play in nature and environmental conservation. Whether you're a photographer, a filmmaker, a graphic designer, a storyteller, a scriptwriter, a podcaster, you have a role to play. And that role should not limit you to just environmental conservation. You as an individual can take a role in the life you live, the way you live, and people around you. And the next image you create may be the one that sparks the change, so you never know. So go out there and keep on shooting, but think about it. Do not just shoot. With all that said, I'll give one image. Is this Nairobi River? Think about it. There's literally across. It's a menace. It's annoying. As much as we have single ban of plastic use, but trust me, we've not even touched the tip iceberg of the issues in hand. If you're living in an area where it's always clean, lucky for you. But if you're living in an area where it's not clean, please take an initiative and clean it up, or come together as a community, because there's the power of imagery and the power of the people to make a particular change. It starts with you as an individual. And then don't forget people actually taking their time to protect the wildlife that we have currently in the country. I think with all that said, that is me saying, I am welcome to questions. Thank you. Hello, Stu.
I think, Asante sana, Tony. Samia Kamali is asking, when you're taking pictures in the field for a better story, are there times where you ask people in the room to stand in a particular way or to adjust so that you take pictures in a certain way? I think his curiosity is about the balance between capturing the situation as it is or altering it a little bit so that you can get a better picture. What do you have to say about that?
So, especially for the people, for me, it's very, very particular. Is that I do not interfere with whatever they are doing, and that's why you need to stay longer with them. So if you're working with rangers, you can't go on day one and get images. You need to sit down with them for like almost 2 days just to get to know them, understand them, ask them as many questions as possible. What do they do? How do they do it? You as a photographer need to figure out how you're going to create that image. So there's no any particular point you'll be able to let me use not the right word, but stage manage any particular picture, because you understand the context, and that's why research is very, very key for you to understand those aspects. Once you understand the relationship between these particular people with the subject you're shooting, it becomes easier for you to know. For example, they feed the chimps at this particular time. The scientist goes out to collect data of this particular species at this particular time. So you're able now to make your shooting list depending on what you've researched before, and also looking at the images you've taken over time to build up on that. Yeah. You're muted.
We have Miaron Billy who's asking, how do you handle consent of the people you shoot? Do you carry a model release with you? How do you handle consent of the people you photograph? Do you always carry a model release?
So this is mainly on ethical standards and ethical issues. So for me, all my assignments, even small, I have to carry a model release form, and it has to be signed. And every single assignment that I have, everyone has signed the model release form. And this just gives context. That's why working through scientists, it becomes much more easier for you to be able to get that consent easily. So there's no day I'll just wake up in the morning and go shoot. There's always to have a plan, and I carry along my model release form. At the moment, I'm still using paper, but I know there's an app that you can actually use as a model release form, and it's very, very efficient. If I get a hold of it, probably you can WhatsApp me or email me. I can able to send you the details. But there's an app that you can use as a model release form, and it just keeps you both the photographer, the collaborator, who in most cases they're called clients, and also the subject the people you're shooting. The people you're shooting to, and to help. And don't just think about model release form as release forms for models alone. Even the location you're shooting at, try as much as possible and take the location release form, because it allows you to be able to now know to what extent you can use that particular footage. Yeah.
Mohoro on YouTube is asking, what is the business side of nature and conservation photography? What is the business side of nature and conservation photography? I think you talked about passion and dedication at the beginning. Lakini, are you telling us unaweza fanya hii kazi ukae tu umesota without making money? I guess that's what Mohoro and other people want to know. Tony.
So this is a question that was raised in one of the groups, and I think I'll just try and pull it up from the answer that I gave. Just a moment. I'm just going to look. It was brought up in one of the groups that I am in, and I had to do a long text to explain it. So, just like any other business, you must have a plan and a strategy to be to get an income from wildlife photography. Selling images is one way, but investing on getting those particular images also takes a longer process. It's not that easier, because if you think about the cameras to use, you have to travel, you have to prepare yourself, you have to, like, there's a lot just getting one image you can actually sell. And if you get that beautiful image, very many other people have almost similar images, so it becomes difficult to sell it. So you can earn from stock images, but it's not the best ideal way to earn from wildlife photography. My opinion on how to earn from wildlife photography or nature and conservation-based photography is that you combine it with other different aspects. For instance, I'll use my case example, is that I use nature and conservation photography to support organizations be able to communicate. And I am using my time, and I can give them a rate and tell them this is what it costs to have me to have me as part of your team and document this particular work. And that is where now it comes to you as an individual. There are those assignments that you will fully volunteer because you're passionate about the topic. There are those assignments that you will give them a rate card, because you need to have a rate card at all particular points. And for me, I've been learning this over a period of time. And once you have the rate card, is that if you're volunteering for any organization and taking pictures for them, you need to come up with them with a contract. And the contract can be, they can use the images for their own purpose use, but if anybody else needs them, they have to contact you and you sell those images to them, image rights sort of, to them. So that is just another way you can actually use to make money. The other way is just look at it as a documentary work. If you're hired to document any work, you need to get paid for your work. And that is something that I have learned over time, that and getting the actual rate was a bit difficult, but then being in spaces, being in platforms where you have other photographers, it really builds that particular space. One other thing is that you can actually combine it with tourism. And I've seen most people combine their photography passion with tourism. So if they want to get to a specific bird species, they ask people, do you know what? I run this particular safari, and you can actually join me for the safari. And then in that particular process, he gets the amazing images and builds up on that. Capacity building, if you want to continuously teach other people doing conservation photography or that, you build up to that. So in short, primarily is that you can either get hired, but again, before you get to that position where you're hired, just like any other form of photography, you need to be able to show a portfolio, you need to show a consistency of your work, and you need to show some sense of focus on what exactly you're doing. And that is the investment you have to put when it comes to conservation photography, because it looks easy, but then at the end of the day, when you start now doing the little details, it becomes again much more a bit complex. Because some people might refuse, they want you to become on the field because they don't know what you're going to communicate. So you need to be able to have that open mind on building it. One other way of building it up is doing two ways. Having personal projects. And when you have personal projects, you can look for grants. And in these grants, you can be able to pay yourself through this particular grants. But this again depends on what type of grant you're applying. So if you're applying for National Geographic grant, if you're applying for NIWF, if you're applying for Biographic, you're able to now to do different aspects. And sometimes when you volunteer for a given assignment organization and help them create those images, you can be able to get more access and get funds from publishing organizations, just to mention a few: Manga Bay, Biographic, New York Times, The Guardian, and different organizations. The UN can actually hire you for UN environmental program. So depending on whatever you're doing, you need to be able to figure out what is the business angle, and that is something that I have to be honest, I'm also learning in the process. And it becomes difficult because I'm so passionate about what I do. And sometimes I have to draw the line where I have to have that line that, you know what, when it gets to this place, I have to earn. When it gets to this, it's like, that's okay, we can pass. But when the images are being used somewhere else, kindly notify me, and I'll be able now to engage the person who needs them to be able to buy them from me. Because at the end of the day, it helps me continuously be able to create more for you and keep me afloat over a long period of time. I hope that answers your question.
Anthony, there is also a question from Mohoro on YouTube, who's following the session on YouTube. He's asking, have you encountered white privilege and how has it affected your work? Have you encountered white privilege and how has it affected your work?
Oh, that's a huge one, but I don't know how I can. Let me see. So, I think I'll answer how I've actually encountered it. And if it's there, yeah, I can't really put it outright, really. Yeah, but then the thing is how do you handle it? That's the thing. Is that, for instance, if you see somebody has an effort of doing something and you're not able to get a hold of it, find other ways to build up on it. For instance, for me, my personal path that I took was I just had to continuously learn and especially learn from them a lot. And in that process, I realized how to go about it and then align myself to a level that if you're supposed to select somebody, it would be basis on who I am. It's basis on what can they do, what have they done, how do they do them, are they professional enough? So there's the aspects of ethical consideration that you need to put in place, you as an individual, before even looking at, am I able to get a particular space? Because let me just bring it down to the normal, like the Kenyan aspect. Why did I call myself Tony Wild? It's outrightly there. When I would have used my personal name, it would have taken me longer. But Tony Wild as a brand on its own, with a different aspect, nobody knew where it was coming from. Is it a white person? Is it a black person? Where the hell is it coming from? Nobody will ask you where it's coming from. Somebody who does not know me will not ask, oh, where you're coming from. So it depends just how you package yourself. So one, package yourself, be as ethical and as much as possible. Just have your plans well, and don't focus on that particular aspect. Try go around the issue, but do not ignore it again. Don't focus on it, but do not also ignore it. Also have it in mind. And I'm talking about this not just about white privileges, but I'm also talking about tribalism within the particular space. And it's there. It's not like it's not there. So you have to just figure out how you can do it. And then you just need to, I don't know how best I can put it, but trust me, look for me and we can have coffee, Grace, and we can actually break it down into pieces. But the thing is, for me, is personally, I'll just have to face it and not be able to run away from it. Facing the extent that just stand, be out there, be on their faces as much as you can, but don't be on their faces. And when I talk about people's faces, is everyone, so they can always remember the work you do by producing good quality work and being ethical at whatever you're doing. And that will just make you stand out, even in any extraordinary space. Yeah. I hope that answers you. This it's a tough question, and I think probably might be a session some other day, some other time, somewhere.
Okay. I think perhaps I cannot see any other comment, but I can see some emojis from Fifi Pats. I'm a clap hapo because of your presentation. I do not think I have seen any other comment or question. maybe one question I would want to ask Tony is perhaps you can briefly touch on the importance of the multiple skill set that you use, for example, in your space, that at some point you will be writing, you're shooting video, you're shooting pictures, you have to come up with some concepts. Maybe you can briefly talk about the multiplicity of the skill sets that you need when you're doing your work.
Yeah, so I think I mentioned it earlier that taking that particular photography is just one component of the whole cycle. Because you need to know how to write. At least if you don't know how to write, reach out to your friends. I have a lot of friends who help me with writing, and reach out to them. If I have a concept, I can share it with my team. I have a team that I work with, and I share with them the concept in one particular space. It really helps. Writing proposals, just breaking them down. Writing proposals is also key, and because there's so many proposal opportunities for especially photographers around, but you must be able to write those particular proposals. Reporting. You see, once you get funds, you need to be able to report those particular funds. Filming. As much as I do photography, in every of my assignment, I do not look at the end product as producing pictures. I also think about a photography story in the process, a film story in the process, either character-driven story, either situational-driven story, either how to do given story. And currently, I'm doing a series of films for regenerative agriculture, and that is conservation agriculture in a different way, urban regenerative agriculture, and also doing another film on forest guardian that hopefully will be out end of September this year. And that really helps build up. So each and every assignment I do builds up on a different aspect of filming. Apart from just filming, is you need to have good networking skills, negotiation skills, and also project implementation. You need to be able to break down the project implementation. The other that I'm currently learning is working with a team, managing time, because there's so many facets of things I'm doing. So you need to also be able to manage this, manage that, to be able to learn how to organize your travels, using your calendar. So there's so many things that you need to get to add into to build up that photography aspect. So in creating just one image, you need to be able to show that particular skill set. Mountain evaluation is key. So this is what you get paid for. As much as they see the image, and when somebody asks you, how much will I create this image for a day, you can now able to, you don't need to break it down to them, but you need to know to explain it in an easier way that this is how it works. This is how I do my stuff. And this is why I charge this and not this. And this is why I can't give it for free. And that's why I can't volunteer. So, and this is why I'm volunteering again, because there are those who say I'm volunteering because of this, this, and this. So I think there are different skill sets you can actually add in to just build. But most importantly is people skills. People skills are very, very key. How you relate to people, how you work with people is really key. Yes, and also finances, which also I'm currently learning a lot in terms of management and working with them and trying to build more projects as we continue. Yeah, I think that's all for now.
Okay. I think I don't see any other comments from the people who are following the session. So I think I'll just appreciate those who have been here. As I can see, a number of people have been active in this session. Samia Kamali, who has been following this Kenya Photo Week from day one. the Mohoro, we have Moreshi, we have Tobias Odacha, we have Vicky Wangoi, Fifi Pats, Asan and Vicky Wangoi. Asanteni sana for following this. I believe also on Facebook we've had Miaron Billy, who has been following, commenting, and asking questions. Asanteni sana for those who have been following. Unless Tony, maybe you want to make additional comments or presentations. I do not see any other questions that anybody wants to ask. It's now heading to 25 minutes past 10, so that we can take our break, and then we allow the next speaker, which is Kevin Ochieng, coming. Tony, do you have any additional remarks and maybe closing remarks?
Just to a spoiler alert is that we are coming up with a conservation internship program that will be rolling up in 1st September. So this will be open for like 1 year, and it will be live probably next week, Wednesday. So if you are, and the internship program is for people aged between 26 to 35. So one assignment, you can join in, learn, and go now to build a particular aspect. We have a young conservation photography workshop coming up for the ages between 18 and 26. So those are like young adults. That will be happening for about 10 days. So more details will be coming shortly. So please go follow me on Instagram. And as much as I have all this, I need each and every one of us to actually be able to help participate in this particular space. Ni hayo tu kwa sasa.
Anthony, please put the screen that was showing your contacts. I can see the Mohoro saying thank you for your answering the questions very well. Put the frame that had the slide that had your contacts, so that they can get in touch. I can see some people asking that they would want to get in touch with you. Yes, the one with the map at the end. Okay, so you can see Anthony's mobile number there. You can see his email address. And I want to testify that Anthony is a very helpful guy. He's very easy, hananga pressure, hananga stress, kudili na watu. So the Mohoro and anybody else who may want to get in touch with Tony, you can hit him up on his mobile phone, drop him an email, and also you can chat with him on his social media handles there, TonyWildKE and info@tonywild.co.ke. Winnie Joseph, asante sana. You're saying great presentation. And Mohoro also has said thanks for a great presentation. Anthony, asante sana. You'll share with us the posters for the events that are coming up, the activities that you have for internship and the training. Just want to repeat that we will be going live with Kevin Ouma. I believe that should be at 10. That will be at 11:30 to 12:30. Today, Kevin Ouma will be talking about documentary photography and storytelling. Kevin Ouma is a photojournalist with Compassion International, which is an international NGO. So, Tony Wild, asante sana. Go and grab your cup of tea or coffee, uchangamke. And thank you very much for taking your time, energy, and other resources to make this session a good one. Everybody who's following, goodbye. See you in the next session.